Hello, and welcome to another episode of Believe It Life Coaching. I'm your host, Layla Kiley, and in today's episode, we are going to discuss spiritual warfare and, more importantly, more specifically, spiritual disciplines and how we apply those sometimes from a place of fear rather than from a place of rest. And when we do this, we really wear ourselves out. We find ourselves defeated, exhausted, and with very little results. So let's talk about that, how we can operate from a place of rest in the spiritual realm, applying spiritual disciplines to the challenges of everyday life. Okay, hello. I'm so excited about today's episode so I can share with you practical tools that I have learned along my journey, not only through life coaching, but applied tools, things that I know work. They've worked for me. And that's the place I'm always going to speak from, is what worked for me. I never want to speak on an issue or offer you tools that I haven't used and seen success with myself. So today, let's talk about these spiritual disciplines, which I often refer to as Christian gymnastics. So I'm going to get into that. Let me start with this. 2 things that God told me as a 7-year trial was budding. He told me to be brave, and you won't be shaken and you won't be moved. Then all of a sudden I was faced with chaos and feeling nothing but shaken and moved to my core. Now, at the end of it all, I was much more developed as an unshakable person with increased faith and confidence, but it took a lot of pain for me to get there. This reminds me of Gideon when God spoke to him and said, "You mighty man of valor." And Gideon was like looking around over his shoulder, "Not me." I don't know who you were talking to. But at the end of the day, that was who he ended up being, a mighty man of valor. But he didn't realize that that's what God was calling him to, or that he had that within himself until he actually walked it out. It's the same thing here for me. God was calling me to be brave. He told me I wouldn't be shaken and moved. And next thing you know, I'm experiencing all of this turmoil, but it was trial by fire. I learned how to really walk unshakable through these trials. So in the book of Hebrews, it says that we have an unshakable kingdom downloaded inside of us. Now, it is our goal to come into alignment with this spiritual reality. So I want to ask you this question: when difficulty comes your way, what do you do? I've been through a number of challenges, and some of which have literally put me on the run, some just emotionally or just spiritually or even physically. And in my ignorance, I resorted to what I call Christian gymnastics. So bear with me here, and I will explain further. So Christian gymnastics that I'm referring to include praying fervently, proclaiming scripture, prophesying, declaring victory, taking authority over the circumstance or whatever issue that's come up, and praying in the spirit, reading my Bible, just really, I'm just going to hunker down, set my, everything that I have to it. And I'm just going to start throwing all of these spiritual warfare tools that we find in the Bible. And I'm going to throw it all at it. But what I found was very little results from this approach. Okay. And it definitely left me feeling defeated and frustrated and worn out and like just hopeless. It's like, okay, this isn't working for me. I don't understand. I'm clearly doing something wrong here. So yes, if you're familiar with Christian lingo, these practices that I have referred to as Christian gymnastics are actually what we call spiritual disciplines. And there's nothing wrong with these practices. And in fact, we are called to them and taught them in Scripture. But when we're implementing these disciplines frantically and out of more fear than faith, then we've actually fallen into a trap. And this trap is the ultimate goal of the enemy because it's designed to distract you from your purpose and chip away at your faith and your relationship with God. These crises are always kind of a means to that end. Another problem with kind of frantically or fearfully working through the disciplines during a stressful time is that they can easily turn into performance. It's so easy for us, and I do it too. I get it. To step into a performance mindset. It's where we think, okay, if I check these boxes off, then God will see and he'll start fighting for me, you know? Or, if I do this, then God should do that. We do this song and dance to kind of get him to move, but then it seems like it falls flat, right? We're doing the song and dance, but it's not working. Um, Other times, the performance-based thinking starts coming in, and I let me get to this. I read somewhere that performance-based thinking is nothing more than low-level legalism. And ouch, and that's exactly what it is. I completely agree with that. Or I've noticed that sometimes our thought processes go to, okay, I've held up my end of the bargain, God. Now it's your turn to hold up yours. And this posture reeks of arrogance. So we don't want to go there. I want to help you shift your postures so that you can become unshakable and exude confidence in the spirit realm as you trust God. So listen to the heart posture of the psalmist. I don't know if you know this, a fun fact here, but fear not is written in the Bible 365 times. God has a clear message for us. He wants us to not walk in fear because he knows you will start sinking. It's like Peter getting out of the boat, trying to walk to Jesus. And then he starts noticing the storm around him and starts focusing on that rather than Jesus. And he starts to sink. And Jesus comes up and starts to pull him up. And he said, "Why did you fear? Why did you doubt?" And that's what fear is. It's doubting the goodness of God. We're not able to trust God in the circumstances. So listen to the heart posture of this psalmist. This is Psalm 11:1. And he says, "In the Lord I take refuge. How then can you say to me, flee like a bird to your mountain? For look, the wicked bend their bows. They set their arrows against the strings to shoot from the shadows at the upright in heart. When the foundations are being destroyed, what can the righteous do?" And he's saying, okay, wait, no. In the Lord I take refuge. How can you say to me, flee like a bird to a mountain? I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow the enemy to put me on the run. I'm going to face him. Another example is in Nehemiah 6, 11 and 13. When foes urged Nehemiah to run from trouble, he said, "Should such a man as I flee?" He realized that his enemies wanted to make him afraid and sin by fleeing. So now I think that when we frantically start throwing disciplines at the problem, it really becomes a signpost in the spirit realm to the enemy that his strategy is working. He knows if you're confident in what you're doing. He knows what's going on based on your life history, because he knows your history, and how you are actually demonstrating your heart in your words as you're fighting these battles. So if the enemy knows that he's got you on the run, his strategy is working and he's going to continue on. And this is why I call the buffalo my spirit animal. Now, don't read too deeply into that. That's it's kind of tongue in cheek, but I like it because buffalo are known for facing a storm, whereas other mammals turn and run from it. So they instinctively know that by not only facing the storm, but also walking towards it, they will pass through it faster. And take note, they are not running frantically, but rather slow and steady. So when there's a big snowstorm coming, they've observed this, that the buffalo will actually turn, face the storm, and start walking into it. If you had other cattle or different mammals out, often what they do is they turn their back to the storm and try to, weather it that way. But the buffalo don't do that. They face it and move forward through it. And that's what what I draw from that. So in the past, when I have gone through a crisis, many, I was definitely scared and frantically throwing Christian tools at the crisis to try and keep it at bay. And this is what I've witnessed many other Christians do. And it's obviously not a complete error. We kind of you fake it till you make it, but it's really low level spiritual warfare. And I really want to get you into effective spiritual warfare. So when we stop trying to control the situation and stop acting out of fear, we definitely see more progress. So, how do I keep calm and carry on? The foundation from which I springboard, this is the core perspective that I have, that everything is launched from. And I had to learn this. And if you want to look back in some of other episodes that I've posted, one is called Training for Reigning, and that'll give you a more expounded understanding of what it is that I'm talking about here. Okay, so this is the foundation. Let's kind of in a nutshell. I love how John Eldridge says this. He goes, "Life is a love story set in the midst of a life and death battle." I completely agree. I'm in a world at war. The enemy is using everything he can to take me out. I am training for reigning, and there is carryover into the kingdom. Romans 8:28, all things will work together for my good. Genesis 50:20, and what you mean for evil, God will work for my good. And then finally, Revelation 12:11, love not your life unto death. So this is foundation, is helps to develop fortitude in your life. Okay. This is the strong, solid foundation. I understand that God is with me. Jesus is my savior, and he is here to see me through to the very end. And in the meantime, I'm in boot camp, if you will, during this life as we're walking it out. We are in boot camp, and we definitely need to be vigilant, keep our eyes open, and understand that there is an enemy, running about seeking who he can devour. But there's also God looking over the land, seeing who has faith. So that's the posture. That's the beginning. That's always step one. That's my foundation. Now, let me offer you some practical steps to walking in faith over fear. So, number one, make peace with worst case scenario. I have found this to be very helpful. Make peace with worst case scenario. We want to find the root of the fear. What's going on here? What am I worried about most? And let me face it and make peace with that. So this is how I overcame panic attacks. I made peace with death. I faced the storm. Okay. What was I afraid of? I don't know if anybody's ever gone through panic attacks, but they are debilitating. And yes, there's a lot of fears that are built up that bring your body to that point. But in the moment, and that's what I'm talking about here, is in the moment, you feel like you're dying. That's why you see a lot of people run to the ER or the urgent care or something. They're like, I feel like I'm having a heart attack. And they tell them, no, you're just having a panic attack. So in the moment, you think you're dying. So that's what I'm talking about. In the moment, I needed to get control over that. That was what was, highest priority at the time. And then I started kind of chipping away at what got me to that point. What were all the anxieties, all the things I was worrying about, all the stress in my life that, was compounding, causing me to start having panic attacks. But when I was in the panic attack, I definitely had to make peace with death. And that's really what broke the stronghold off of me. So what are you afraid of? Are you afraid of dying? Okay. My answer was yes. I was definitely afraid that that's what was happening in the moment, and it was causing me tension because you're starting to fight against that in the moment, right? So what I did is I really started to look into that and say, okay, how can I make peace with death? What does the Bible say? The Bible says that to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. So I know that I'm saved. I'm not worried about that. So if I was to die in the moment, what's the worst case scenario? I will be present with the Lord. So these truths will set you free. Okay. Also, so then some people think I was coaching someone one time and they were just terrified of dying because he was worried about leaving his children behind. And, we really talked through this and came to the conclusion, the understanding that his children would be okay. He can trust God. These are God's children more than they are his own. So while that might find you some, a little bit of comfort, what we want to do is just start chipping away at the lie, chipping away at the fear that's taken hold of you. So we really got to the point where he could say, okay, if I was to die, my children would be okay. Life is but a vapor, right? It may in our mind seem like it's eternity, but it's actually not. It is but a vapor, and his children would be okay. So it's make peace with death. Revelation 12:11 tells us, And they overcame by the blood of the Lamb, the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto death. So this may be a little too radical for some people, or maybe not the best approach in every circumstance, but it is one that I have used and found success with. Look at worst case scenario and make peace with it so it doesn't have power over you any longer. And then you can really start operating more sensibly and without so much fear building up inside of you. Think more clearly for solutions. All right. Second one, recognize that fear fuels the problem. Okay. I was very concerned at one point in my life about trauma that my children were going through and experiencing. I saw it. I knew that it was coming, and I knew it was going to last some years. It was very disturbing, very stressful for me. Um, Watching anyone suffer is excruciating, and it hurts, right? And there really is no answer for that. That's just a part of our human experience. We are walking out the Bible during those times. Suffering is just a part of the program. And just like God, right? God watched his son suffer, and he still watches his children suffer, but it's only temporary. In the end, we have the victory. So keeping that in mind. 2 Timothy 2:12. I love this. We suffer with him, and we shall also reign with him. It is part of our glory to be able to suffer with him, but then we will be glorified with him as well. So what it boiled down to for me, okay, facing the worst case scenario in that situation, for me was, will God still be good if the suffering continues, if there is no end to it, or if the suffering ends in death? Will God still be good? Because really, at the end of the day, that was my biggest issue. It's, okay, God has abandoned me, or God's not good, or God doesn't exist if this problem doesn't resolve itself. But I came to the conclusion and started to believe within my spirit. And that's what's resonating, is what we're believing in our spirit. So I had to go to the extreme. Would God still be good if this is long lasting and doesn't end? This is the way that you break that power over you, that type of fear. It helps you to release it to God. And it really is the secret to peace that surpasses understanding, is giving up your right to understand. It was definitely my gateway to trusting God. It's face the storm and double down on your convictions. Call your bluff. And the bluff is that we should be afraid. Oh, there's something to be afraid, right? So I don't like what's happening. It's not as if I'm just walking around happy-go-lucky. It's just a matter-of-fact understanding that I don't like what's happening. I will pray for peace, and I will pray for deliverance. But my posture is that at the end of the day, God is good no matter what happens. You have to bottom line yourself with this at some point in your life. I knew instinctively that my worry, my fear, and my hurt, that I was experiencing, was fueling the fire. You can just tell. It just instinctively, you can pick up on. It's like, okay, I've been put on the run here in fear. And I can see that that's goading the enemy on, right? He's continuing. He's realizing, oh, that makes you hurt. That makes you scream. I'm going to keep poking at you. So there's a time in your life where you need to settle yourself and say, okay, I may be in torment right now, but this will come to an end, and I will have the ultimate victory in the end. If that's in this life or the next, right? When Jesus comes back, it will happen. So double down on your convictions and start posturing your spirit that way. Okay, spiritual warfare. Key is to manage your fear, and that's kind of what we've been talking about, to keep calm and carry on. So that when the enemy has put you on the run and he's instilled fear in you, he knows it. Okay, now it's virtually impossible, if this is your first time around, it's really no one's, but if it's your first time around, you're early in your faith journey, it takes time to develop this, but practice does make progress. Just like when you're parenting, you have your first child come along and everything is just one big learning experience. And you have all of these emotional, roller coasters that you go on with all the things that happen. And you have all of these types of reactions. And then the second one comes along and it's a little more diminished. You're still kind of, getting rattled here and there by the things that happen, but you handle it a little bit better, not completely caught off guard. Then the next one comes around and you're just kind of like, okay, whatever. It's like, oh yeah, been there, done that. Know what this one looks like. I know what the end looks like. It's going to be okay. And we're just going to have more of a rational response. So that's kind of what I liken it to. So there is a certain amount that you will have to walk out. But like the buffalo, when you confront the storm, walk through it and see it through to the end. The actual event may take time to resolve itself, but you can get control of yourself. And that's what I want to help you do. Get control of yourself so you're not tormented, you're not struggling, and the spiritual disciplines, the spiritual warfare that you're doing will actually have more impact. Okay, so another one, healthy detachment. So the first one's make peace with the worst case scenario. Number two, recognize that fear fuels the problem. Number three, healthy detachment. And then we'll get to number four, applying spiritual disciplines from a place of rest. And that'll be the last one. So healthy detachment. This is where your emotions aren't ruling you. There is a place for healthy detachment. Okay. This is where we meet challenges more matter of fact. Now I have learned that it's best to be matter of fact about a situation instead of emotionally charged. Now, our negative emotional responses, forgive me when I say it, this is what I'm going to say. They're not a right, they're a choice. I know a lot of people say, well, I have a right to be upset, or I have a right to be scared, or I have a right to be, XYZ emotion. It's fine, but it's not helping you. You won't get through things successfully that way. You're certainly not quickly. Okay. We're here to grow and mature and develop some emotional intelligence. And that's what we've got to do. This is real and it's real war. And you can't run around like a chicken with your head cut off anytime some situation arises. So fight smarter, not harder. Okay. You can't fight back against powers and principalities effectively when you are in an emotionally dramatic state. The spirit realm knows it. Okay. They know I've got a weak one here. They're vulnerable. I'm going to go after them and devour them. Okay. Let's not throw those flags. Okay. As I've become more shakable, one thing that I've noticed is that my immediate response is more detached and removed emotionally from a crisis. And it's almost like a bystander in a movie, or sometimes in my head, I play it out like a video game. It's like, okay, this is kind of helps me to detach. It's like I'm watching things unfold and I'm the avatar and I have a caricature kind of move forward and present something to me. And then I look at like, what are the tools in my toolbox that I can apply to this scenario in this situation? It really helps me to not be personally offended and not get all my emotions involved, but really kind of detach, but still stay focused on the situation. So this takes practice to achieve, but it's definitely attainable. So how do we apply? This is really what I want to get at. Spiritual disciplines from a place of rest. Okay. This is wielding your weapon much more effectively when you can apply spiritual disciplines from a place of rest. So let me give you an example. A couple of years ago, kind of just out of the blue, I get a call from a landlord saying that they're going to sell my house, and it's a part of the clause in my lease that if they sell the house, then they can break the lease. I think it was like a 30-day notice also. So they're not going to they're putting the house up for sale. They want me to have it ready to show that I need to do that and tell them which days, and that he plans on selling the house. I can't remember if there was a time frame or not, but either way. So I'm like, okay, that was a shock. And I was kind of caught off guard. And this was also during a time when the rent had just gone up $300 to $500 a month. Okay. Now that has happened over the course of several years, but where I was, or my landlord particularly, didn't raise my rent. But rent had been raised everywhere else, and I wasn't able to afford that type of price increase. And I looked everywhere. I was in a small town at the time, and there's not much stuff available for rent. I think there was like two places, and they were over $3,000 a month. So it was definitely out of my price range. So I started looking, expanding kind of my search into some outlying areas, and nothing. I wasn't finding anything. So I did this for a couple of weeks, and I really started to feel the stress kind of pile on and thinking, oh, what am I going to do? What's going to happen here? So then I recognized what was really going on. And so I had to stop myself. I realized I have stepped into fear, worry, anxiety. It was low level, but it was happening. And I know how this goes. It's not going to be good if I continue that way. It's like you're hindering the resolution. So I just stopped. I stopped myself and I decided, okay, I'm going to fight this battle differently. There's nothing manifesting, nothing showing itself. I can't plan ahead here. I'm at a stalemate. So this is what I did. I did something that I enjoyed. And I love yard work. Not everybody loves that, but I recommend doing something that you enjoy. I took several days off and I just stopped thinking about it. I'm not going to search for things, not going to search for resolution, search for a new house, try to figure this out. I'm just going to do what I enjoy. So I ended up just kind of going crazy, doing yard work around the house, cutting down the bushes, and, you know, I was just outside soaking up the sun, which I love and enjoy. It's kind of my thing. And I sat on my patio. I loved that patio and I read the Bible. I would just take a break, eat. I think I would eat like 5 oranges a day. I just loved the whole summer feel. I would do yard work and get sunny and, get sun kissed and sweaty and worked on my tan, I guess you could say. Anyway, and I would just sit down and read my Bible. And I wasn't reading my Bible for resolution. So in this particular situation, there's not a biblical principle really that, or story you can go to and kind of say specifically about a housing situation. You can do that with like family dynamics or interactions with people or, other things. But this particular one, it was just okay. What I'm going to do is just read my Bible out of enjoyment and spending time with God. And I'm not going to feel like it needs to be a certain time, a length of time, or so many chapters to read. I'm just going to relax. I'm going to stop thinking about the situation, stop trying to find resolution, read my Bible, talk to God, spend time with God, and do things that I enjoy. And what do you know? A couple of weeks later, I get a call and they said the landlord has decided not to sell the house and he wants you to sign a year lease. Another one, go ahead and extend it. So that was a huge relief, and I was so grateful that resolved itself. So that's just an example that I wanted to give you, how you can posture yourself and operate from a place of rest rather than from a place of fear, frantically throwing tools right at the situation. Okay, so these are kind of the things that I employed, these spiritual disciplines from a place of rest. So number one, it was stop obsessively thinking about the problem. Like I said before, the spiritual warfare occurs in the realm of thought. You have to take time and set aside to think about the problem and then stop. Okay. Let it go and move on. Look casually for solutions, but not frantically. That's something else that I have learned. I'm not going to just go full force in trying to figure it out. That anxious striving will hold you back as well and hold the answer back. So I will look for solutions. I'm not ignorant to what's going on, but I'm not going to be frantically, obsessively thinking and searching for the answer. It's not going to be all consuming. Okay. So I'm going to go about my business, do some time, appropriate to apply to problem solving, and then move about my day. Do something you enjoy. That's another thing that you do. This is really, it's resonating in the spirit realm what your posture is. So do something that you enjoy, okay? You're not going to be rattled or shaken. And this is how we can start demonstrating this, okay? So do something you enjoy or casually read the Bible like I did, not looking for an answer. Go about your day if it's resolved, right? This is a posture of trust. God's got this. He's going to figure it out. It may not be the answer that I'm looking for, but he definitely has a plan, and I will see what I'm going to be learning from this and the new experience that he has me moving into. We just have to get plain and simple about it, okay? I also incorporate disciplines as a part of my existence, okay? Not just in the moment when things start to go sour. Think about the story in the Bible where the apostles came up to Jesus and they said, they tried to cast a demon out of someone and it didn't work and they didn't understand why. So they came to Jesus and said, okay, we've tried, we did what you told us to do, but it's not working. And Jesus said, this kind doesn't come out but through prayer and fasting. And Jesus didn't pray or fast in that moment, right? He just called the spirit to come out. And the idea behind that is that Jesus was already prayed up and he was already fasted up. He had something to draw from already. So that's something else that I would encourage you to do and that I do throughout my existence. I don't like to always put a daily plan together. Sometimes that works for me and sometimes it doesn't, but it is a part of how I live my life. It's a part of my lifestyle. I read, I pray, I worship. I'm talking to God. I spend time with him. So these are the things that I do instead of Christian gymnastics and manifesting fear and having, a lot of faith in the fear of the problem rather than um, walking from a place of rest and applying these disciplines, peace and confidence. And that's what we really want to work on. So I hope this helps you. You guys, please comment below and let me know what you think, or if you have some tools for yourself that have worked during a time of crisis that you find to be very beneficial. You guys have a blessed day.